Hello, I am Deb Coviello, founder of the Drop-In CEO brand, and I am so grateful you've joined us on another episode where week after week I find these amazing leaders who share their leadership insights with you and hopefully inspire you. And you know what I always say, if you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, download. We love downloads, but most importantly, share this episode with at least one person who could benefit from this amazing content. And now I am so honored to share the mic with my amazing guest, Jay Andres, who is the former CEO of Mai Dubai bottled water in the UAE. He was Mai Dubai's first employee, and within 6 years, Jay and his team built a factory and a business that is doing over 100 million in annual revenue. And he was there for the onboarding of over 1,000 employees within those 6 years. And under his leadership, a factory of 50,000 square feet was built and then expanded to over 420,000 square feet. The foundation was built, and the company has continued to thrive to this day, and he continues to serve on the board of directors. He has many, many accomplishments, as well as a book, Manager's Bathroom Book. I cannot wait to get into this amazing resource. But first and foremost, Jay, welcome to the Drop In CEO podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Deb. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, and I am especially to continue it because a little bit for my listeners. As always, I am always in pursuit of those C-suite leaders, those CEOs, presidents, founders of companies that I find just have amazing backstories, and their leadership insights are so valuable to my audience. And that was what I experienced. And again, can't wait to get into his book with you. But Jay, I would just simply love for you to share a bit about yourself personally with our listeners and a bit about your journey into the work that you've been doing now.
Sure, I'll try to condense it down into a few seconds. It's been a 40-year career in bottled water, and I started out at the very bottom. I started out as a relief route person in Los Angeles. I eventually got promoted. I got promoted very young, and because of that, I stayed in that first position a long time, 11 years, longer than average before I promoted to the next position. But during that 11 years, I matured and learned some difficult lessons. And after I made it to that next step, then promotions came somewhat regularly until I retired, or I attempted to retire at age 52. Found out pretty quickly I wasn't very good at that. My wife would tell people that she became Jay's only employee, and I was doing PowerPoint reviews with her monthly, and it was time to go back to work within 14 months. And I thought I'd do something transitional to bridge me to a real retirement. And fast forward a few months, and we're in the Middle East working for a bottled water company over there. I was there a little less than 2 years when the government of Dubai recruited me to start a water company. And I was the very first employee. When I joined, all we had was a brand name, and we'd had a tender written for building the factory that was 90% done, and it was wrong. There was some mistakes in it. It was too late to change. So it was a very interesting start. I remember my second day going home and telling my wife, we might not be here much longer, because I discovered some things that if I'd asked during my interview process, I probably would not have taken the job. I'm glad I didn't ask him, because the job turned out to be fantastic. But we had some funding issues, and just our board knew business very well, but not the bottled water business. So there were some challenges in terms of growth in that regard. But like you say, it turned out great. It was a great cap to a long career. We loved living there. It was safe. We met people from all over the world. It really changed our perspective on things, and we still have friends from those 6 years that we still are in contact and see. It was just an amazing experience, and it was difficult to come home in some ways, but we made it back home, and I'm still involved to some extent.
What I'm really curious about though, because you said you were at a juncture where once you got in, you regretted because you saw some things that you weren't sure could be fixed or were extreme challenges. But then you fast forward really fast and said, "Oh, by the way, it was one of the best experiences I ever had." So
Yeah.
what was it in that interim for which you said, "Oh, I got a bit of regret," to turning it around and getting through that challenge?
Well, one example would be if I had asked them how much money do we have to fund this venture, and they told me, I probably wouldn't have taken the job because it just wasn't enough. But I was already on the job, so I just worked on convincing them we needed more than double what they had budgeted. And I didn't know that they were in a very good position financially. It's the government and it's a utility. So, but I learned that as time went on, and they were good at listening to my point of view and ideas, uh, and then it took about 2 or 3 months to get that funding, and we were in fast forward too. That we had already putting out bids for the job and everything, and I had to hire people, brand the business, do everything with a very minimal budget. But once that was fixed, then we were off to the races. And I remember, I think my first week I sat in the office and out loud, I was the only one in there. I said to myself, what are you going to do now, Jay? Because I really, they didn't have any direction really. They just wanted to be a high quality and a good company. And I remember drawing up an org chart of what I thought the company should look like 1 year from today. This was really the first time I was ever a CEO. So I was really learning on the way. And so I did that, and then I'd write things down where nobody could see, just ideas. And one of the things I wrote down is we have to be different because it was a very crowded field, very competitive. And water, by definition, is difficult to differentiate. It's supposed to be tasteless, odorless, and colorless. So it's hard to differentiate with those ground rules. But we did it in terms of service people and how we approach the business. The other thing I remember writing down was we'll endeavor to be the employer of choice. And we didn't do that by overpaying, but we had specific plans on how to treat people and how to keep morale up and how to communicate and things like that. So, and the nice thing, I didn't know this till I experienced it, but I'd gone into different assignments throughout my career and had to change or adjust or modify the culture. Well, here I was creating one. And I was creating a culture that brought people from all over the world. I mean, we had, I think, 27 different nationalities, one American, and that was me, but it was mostly people from the subcontinent, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and probably 15-20% Filipinos and lots of Middle Eastern Arabs and non-Arab Middle Eastern people. So it was really exciting, and I should have wrote a book about that, but decided to the manager's bathroom book. I wrote that during that brief retirement period and just set it aside. Then COVID took away all my excuses for publishing, and I finally got it published during the first year of COVID.
I cannot wait to get into some of those chapters of that work because, um, again, my audience will get to the reasons why I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
exciting. But I want to come back a little bit. One of the things that I talk about is creating your own whiteboard when you're in a situation where you just don't
Mm-hmm.
know what direction to go in. In fact, I'm looking at one right now. I've got all kinds of random thoughts put up there.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when leaders are stuck, you just need to have a clean slate, put the ideas down there, and have the courage to try to envision what the future looks like and let it ruminate and simmer a little bit. And then again, look at it and say, does this make sense? And lead with that. So I really love the fact that starting from scratch is hard, but it's also very exciting.
Yeah, I think when I during my career when I got stuck, what I tried to look at was what would someone new do here? And I tried to consider myself being new because new people come in, they don't have the history, they're learning the background, but they have their ideas and their vision. And that's what I would do. Once in a while, I'd feel like we're kind of bogged down or we're not progressing at the rate I would want us to progress at. What would someone who doesn't know this business or know us do? What would they look at and what would they try to adjust?
Mm.
So I still had all that history and background, but it was kind of a shift in my mindset to kind of get out of a rut, if you will.
I think that is amazing insight because whether you're a CEO or just moving up in your career, sometimes we get stuck and that's okay. Great
Hmm.
things happen on the other end of just being patient with the process and thinking a bit versus just doing. But I got one more
Right.
question about you said this is really your first CEO job. Again, you'd had significant leadership in very large
Hmm.
organizations. What was in your mind when you were extended this offer or even thinking to apply for it? Because some people say, oh, I've never been a CEO. Oh, I've never been in that role. I can't do that. So people don't put themselves out there. What was it about this position that you said yes, or you were ready, or what?
Well, I probably have to give credit to my wife, actually. She may not want to hear this, to keep her away from this podcast, but she was kind of the reason why I took it. She's the one who said, hey, if not you, who else? Is there anyone else who knows this business as well as you do in the country that you know? And I said no. And I said there was parts of the being a CEO that I didn't understand. She basically said that's been the case with every job you've ever taken, but you've shown the ability to adapt and learn. So it was really her encouragement. She kind of wanted to go home too, and she said 2 years. We'll stay 2 years, and it ended up being another 6. But yeah, she was the one who kind of gave me the confidence to move forward on it.
And that may be the best mic drop moment.
Yeah,
If not you, who else? So, kudos to the support system at home. We cannot forget them. They are part of who we sometimes become.
that's right.
So beautiful story, and I can resonate so much with that. But I really want to make sure I dedicate some time to this book, The Manager's Bathroom Book. And I
Right,
will tell my audience when I saw this, it is the picture of a great thinker sitting on a
right. Right
commode
on.
on a
Yeah,
and it was like, "Oh my god, that is so artistic." Because I know I publish a book, and I if you go with a significant publisher, they have a lot of creative liberties over what that cover looks like, but when you self-publish, you can put anything you want out there to express what you really want. So tell me a little bit about
yeah.
the inspiration for the cover. I think we should talk about that a bit.
Well, I came up with the book before the title. I wrote the book. I didn't have a title.
Oh,
And I knew I wanted to write short chapters because even 10, 12 years ago, that's kind of where learning was shifting. Everyone's got ADHD and their minds are going. I know people can carry on 2 conversations at the same time, and we're watching television while we're on our phone or our iPad. So I thought I'll give you something that's you can read in short little bursts, and it's my thoughts. I like brevity. One of the things I share with new staff, or one of my idiosyncrasies, is if you're what I would call long-winded, my mind will wander.
mm,
I've gotten tests over the years that I was either a really good listener, or I test sometimes as a poor listener. Finally worked with some psychologist and asked them, gave them my scores and said, why am I getting these mixed messages? And they said, when you're talking to someone you're interested in, you're an incredible listener. But if you're talking to someone who bores you, you go to your happy place and you don't pay attention. So that's why I thought the book would reach people. And I was on another podcast, and this person is an expert in curiosity, and she's very well known for her work with this. And she said, I was so happy to see you had a chapter on curiosity. And I said, yeah, you've spent your whole life on it. And I distilled it down to 3 pages. So I think that's what some people at times need to take a deeper dive. But some of these topics, I think, and some of them are basic topics, some are things you don't think about, like visibility, or surfacing resistance, or when you make mistakes. There's some good parts of making mistakes and learnings that you should focus on. So I hope that I have gotten comments back from people that had one comment where someone was a guy's girlfriend was going to fire someone for the first time, and he said, you should read this book. And she changed her approach on the termination, and it made it go much smoother. And that's where I really felt good about the book, when it could help somebody.
I thank you for that. I remember one person who picked up my book and they were reading the very first chapter because I write the first chapter directly as if I'm having a conversation with them. And I said, I know where you're at. You're stuck. I care about you. I want you to move forward, but you might need to think about your leadership differently. And if you're not ready, please put the chapter down, put the book down.
Right.
And the person reached out to me and actually said they felt like I was talking directly to them and talking exactly to their story. So we have to write, we have to express directly to people and not like speaking above them. But again, these books that we write, our thoughts are so valuable. That's why I'm encouraging so many people, write books, put your content out
Yeah.
there, because if it's important to you, you may be speaking to so many other people that need to hear your insights.
Yeah, and as far as the cover too,
Yeah.
I'm sort of a frustrated marketing person. I was more on the sales side, but I love marketing, and just in the input I had in designing our bottles and our labels and so forth. I know it's really important, and sometimes that's what sells. That's really was one of the big success stories of My Dubai was our packaging. That caused people to try it, and then the taste made them come back. The book cover, I've had people say to me, yeah, I bought your book just because of the book cover. I haven't even read it. So I don't care as long as you enjoy it. But and I just thought the whole concept of a bathroom book doesn't work everywhere in the world. There's there's just different customs in some places, but it's amazing how many parts of the world who understand the concept. Though it's a short book, something I can read, and I don't have a lot of time, and so it seems to have resonated pretty well in terms of the acceptance of it.
So, and I also what I like is the fact that you took that creative liberty on the cover because it
Hmm.
does stand out. Like you said, people bought the book because of the cover. When there are so many technical experts, CEOs of companies, it can't be a commodity anymore. Here's another book on leadership. No, we do
Right.
have to stand out. And learning how to market ourselves is a craft. And I know I've had people come to me for just a quick 30-minute conversation, when I listen to who they are or what are their unique thoughts, I said, "Did you realize that you are this?" And they said,
Hmm.
"Oh my goodness, I never thought of myself." But when you deeply listen to somebody, you can see qualities about who they are and what differentiates them from the rest of the pack. And we don't spend enough time bouncing ideas off and finding out what makes us really unique in our career.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think maybe a good example of that is probably the first chapter in the book, which is resisting a bad idea and surviving. We all work somewhere where sometimes there's a bad idea, or we think it's a bad idea. Sometimes it truly is a bad idea, and that chapter gives you tips on how to deal with that situation. And it kind of depends on where you're at in your career on how you should deal with it. But it's a real trick box. It can, resisting can cause a lot of trouble. So you have to be really careful, and I think rather precise on how you do it. So that's my favorite chapter, and that's why I put it first.
So,
I didn't want any of my staff. I didn't want to publish this before I knew I was done working, because I didn't want people using my own tricks against me to resist my bad ideas.
well, let's go there for a second because I was going to have some follow-up questions here.
Okay,
But
sure.
well, I don't want to give all your tips and tricks away in the book. I want people to go out and get the manager's bathroom book. But what's something that you want to share with people about that first chapter? Resisting a bad
Well,
idea
you
and surviving.
um, don't resist it initially, even if you think it's a bad idea. If you resist initially, right from the beginning, then that kind of paints yourself into a corner. And later on, if you find out it's a good idea, you're kind of in a bad spot. And also, even if you don't prevail and the idea gets launched and it fails, then you could be blamed for it because of your bad attitude, even though it was the bad idea's fault. So just try to keep those thoughts to yourself. I think the other thing too is don't uh, don't create a coalition against your boss. Don't a conspiracy or if you resist, wait till others surface. But you have to be very careful not to your boss viewing you as someone who's trying to get people against me just because of this idea. And most people who've given me comments on the thing say it makes me kind of not want to resist a bad idea. I don't want to resist a bad idea now. And I go, well, that's good. You should be very careful about that, particularly when you're new to the organization or your boss is new to the organization. So it's really a chapter about caution, I think.
And I would respond to that as well because yeah, in my world, things are black and white, but on the other hand, there's gray if you seek to understand. So there may be context that you initially don't have, history or
Right,
understanding of the organization. So as soon as you get that in your stomach, like, oh, this is not going to work, this is not good, I've been there before, or what have you, definitely just ask some questions. Don't react, sleep on it, maybe come
right,
forward and ask some questions in the form of curiosity. And maybe other people are thinking about it. And maybe once
right.
you might spawn some conversation and other people might start asking questions. And then the collective might either say, it is a good idea, or maybe we need to evolve it.
Right. The minute you're viewed as a resistor, then any ideas you have will be rejected. So sometimes a bad idea can become a good idea if it's adjusted a little bit. You're not going to be able to adjust it or play a role in adjusting it if you're viewed as a resistor. So
No, I totally get
that's why
that.
you should be so careful.
So another thing I want to ask you, because again, the book's been out there for, 2.5 years. You must have gotten some feedback from your readers. Have they provided any feedback and saying, this was really a good chapter? What have been the most useful chapters from your readers?
Yeah, I think one of the ones is there's a chapter on knowing when it's time to leave a company and to quit a job. And people have read that, and it affirmed their decision or made them think more, or go back and say, maybe it's not time to leave. Maybe it's time for me to change. So I think that one, because that's got to be a top five decision in your life besides getting married and a few others. But when to leave a job or take another one is it's a really really big decision. And if I help some people through that thought process, that's very rewarding as well.
Is there any others that really jump out? Or that's probably the
I
one that you
think
say, yeah.
maybe building trust. There's a chapter on building trust. I've always thought that had to be the cornerstone to leadership. I would tell people when I take over an organization that we're going to build trust, and the definition of trust will be that we'll be able to disagree and disagree passionately, but still know that we'll be here tomorrow. And I say the person I disagree and have the most arguments with on the planet is my wife, who I love the most too. So there's some trust there, and that you can disagree but move forward. And that's where we have to get, because I want that openness where people aren't afraid to disagree and you get their true feelings. And also I want to be able to tell them when I disagree and have them not get too hurt. So I think that's a real once you have trust built up, I think an organization can just take off usually.
No, I love that because again, today is one work encounter, one career,
Hmm.
one particular job. But I will tell you, the universe has funny ways of coming back around, whether you meet up with those people again or they told somebody about the relationship and then you meet up with them. And it has a tendency to take a life of its own in a negative way. Or
Yeah.
if you paid respect, maybe even had to let people go, shut a plant down. I have had to do that. But when
Hmm.
people at the end of the day feel that they've been respected, and even at the end of the day, they say, "I would work for you again," even though you you let them go. That's what it's about. It's about that human connectivity, far beyond just the circumstance that you're involved in right now.
Yeah, one of the diagnostic tests I had in my early years of management was that I went to this assessment center. It was a week-long thing. At the end, got a lot of positive feedback, but one of the negative things they said, you probably won't ever go very high in an organization. And the main reason, and I'll paraphrase, is you care too much. You got to be, and I'm paraphrasing, you got to be a little more cold-blooded, a little more ruthless, if you want to get to the top of an organization. That's not how you're wired. I didn't believe that, and I don't think I changed because of that. And I think that you do have to be careful because I mean, I do care about people a lot, and some will take advantage of that at times. But you just be mindful of that, and I think it can work still. So it did for me.
And I hate conflict or controversy. And when I've been faced with having to let people go, I work hard on a script to make sure that I have everything because I'll get nervous. But then I
Hmm.
lead with gratitude. I lead with caring about the person. And then I lead with the facts at hand on what the decision is and why the decision is being made. And then how might I even support them during the transition? And while there
Yeah,
might be tears, discomfort, and regret, I feel like they can always trust me, respect me, and we've paid respect to their humanity, even if it's bad. And so
yeah,
it's you don't have to be mean or aggressive in order to maybe have a thicker skin and still be kind. That's what I think.
yeah. That's one of the things I said at my retirement party was that I said they believe that when we die, our whole life flashes before our face. And there's been documented instances where people came back from death and had this experience. And I said, I when that happened, if that happens to me, I hope I don't think about work too much. But if I do, I know what I won't be the numbers. It won't be the achievements, the financial achievements. It'll be the relationships and the friendships and the part we've had in each other's lives throughout the years. And to me, that's the most rewarding part about working and in leading. That's why people say, why'd you want to be a leader? I said, I think you get to be a part of people's lives and see them grow and they help you and you help them. And to me, that's what's so rewarding about it.
I'd love to ask you one last question because this
Sure.
helps me in the work that I do because I serve CEOs, founders, presidents, or other C suite leaders like VPs of operations. And I know some of the challenges that they have and that I can be of service to them. But I also, from your perspective, either personally or from CEOs in general, what are some of the challenges that they might have that prevent them from being successful because I want to make sure that I too could potentially be part of the solution. So, what have you seen at that level?
I think success can sometimes corrupt you. I've seen people who got off to great starts. They're highly intelligent. They had good ideas, but they lost their humility. And I would say that it's really important to remember where you came from, to understand that no one accomplishes anything alone. It's always because of the people around you, and to keep your humility, to keep stay grounded, and have people around you who will help you do that. And if you have that trust where you can disagree and have those type of strong relationships, that'll help that.
I
But
love that.
I've seen it happen even at lower levels. It's not just with CEOs, but I've seen people who are great at a job. It's sort of a weird twist on the Peter principle where they were really good and then they got to the next level and something went wrong. And it's usually their ego. The Peter principle is we promote to our own level of incompetence, but this is a little bit of a twist on that. That something happens to people, success can corrupt at times. So
Oh
that would
my.
be the watch out, I think.
I really, really appreciate that insight because, again, I'm forever I have my experiences on where I've seen them go off track. Again, The CEO's Compass, Your Guide to Get
Hmm.
on Track is my book, but I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your thoughts and experience as well. So, Jay, this has been a great interview. I love your book, Manager's Bathroom Book. To my listeners, you absolutely need to get a copy of it, check it out. Short chapters for you to gain so much insight for your career. But I would
Yeah.
love to give you the floor one last time. Anything else you would like to share with our listeners?
No, it's been a great conversation. I'd like to tell your listeners this was not scripted. We just spoke freely. You're a very calming interviewer, so I've enjoyed it and got to get a few good points out about the book and myself, and I've enjoyed it. So I'll become a fan of your podcast in the future.
All right. Well, so appreciate that, Jay. And I do want to thank you for dropping in on the Drop In CEO podcast. And as always, I want to wish you well and much success.
Thank you, Deb.